Welcome back. This is part 2 of our study, When Does New Jerusalem Descend? Please make sure that you watch part 1 first, because I lay the foundation for understanding the new heavens and the new earth that John describes in Revelation 21, as well as all the different names that Scripture uses for New Jerusalem. Now, in this second part of the study, I just want to walk through all of the scriptures together. So there's going to be a lot of scriptures in this video. We don't want to isolate the few verses in Revelation and start building ideas around them. So what we are going to do in this video is connect all of the dots across the whole Bible. Now you'll see the same language, the same promises, and the same imagery show up repeatedly. When we actually read the passages side by side, it's going to become clear that they're all talking about New Jerusalem, and it's going to be the same moment in time. So I'm just going to let the Bible explain itself line by line, and then we're going to understand when the New Jerusalem comes down to the earth. We've already spoken about Revelation 21, 1-2 in part 1, so we're going to start today's study in verse 3. So Revelation 21:3, it says, "And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God." Okay, so at the point of New Jerusalem descending to the earth, that is when the tabernacle of Yah will be with men. So Yah's tabernacle is his sanctuary, it's his habitation, it's where he currently dwells. So that will descend when New Jerusalem descends to the earth. Now Yah isn't going to set up his throne anywhere on this earth. There's nowhere that Yah's throne will be placed on this corrupted land. It's going to be within the place that he built himself. Now that is the same place, it's the same sanctuary that Yahusha is currently high priest in. So I'll show you what I mean. It's in Hebrews 8, 1-2. It says, "Now this is the main point of the things that we are saying. We have such a high priest who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heavens, and minister in the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle which the Lord erected and not man." Hebrews 9:11 says, "But Christ came as high priest of the good things to come, with the greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with man's hands, that is, not of this creation." So this shows that the sanctuary that John is talking about in verse 3, the tabernacle, that is going to be the heavenly tabernacle that Yahusha is currently ministering in. That's going to be coming down to the earth. Yah or Yahusha are not going to be tabernacling with us in any building, any sanctuary made with man's hands. Now, Ezekiel chapters 40-48, Ezekiel describes a very detailed vision of Yah's sanctuary. In that vision, he's shown a future restored kingdom, and he sees a literal measured city with a temple, with a tabernacle. And it's described as having exact measurements, and it's got dimensions, it's got gates, courts, chambers, it's got borders, it's got fields, and the inheritance for the tribes. It describes so much. So please read those 8 chapters if you haven't already. But it shows people living and dwelling and even working in the land. Now that city that Ezekiel sees, that tabernacle, it's got gates, streets, and named entrances. And it says that Yah permanently dwells there. So Ezekiel is describing a future, functional, physical kingdom. And within that kingdom is Yah's dwelling place. Now let's take a look at Ezekiel 43, 5-7. It says, "The Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of Yahuwah filled the temple. Then I heard him speaking to me from the temple, while a man stood beside me. And he said to me, Son of man, This is the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever. Ezekiel 37:26-28 says, Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them, and it shall be an everlasting covenant with them. I shall establish them and multiply them, and I will set my sanctuary in their midst forever. My tabernacle shall also be with them. Indeed, I will be their God, and they will be my people. The nations will know that I, Yahuwah, sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary is in their midst forevermore. So the timing of Yah's sanctuary coming down to the earth and when he will tabernacle with us is the time that New Jerusalem descends. The next verse in Revelation 21:4, it says, And Yah will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Now it's important to note that there will be no more death, meaning there won't be any death of humans within the city. Remember, John's vision is seeing the New Jerusalem. If you've watched my previous videos, you'll understand by now that the nations will be living outside of the city and they will still be in their mortal bodies. So they will still be dying. Yes, they're going to be living much longer, but they will still experience the first death. So this verse that John talks about in Revelation 21:4, there's a parallel verse to this in Isaiah 65:19 and also Isaiah 25:6-8. It says, I will rejoice in Jerusalem and joy in my people. The voice of weeping shall no longer be heard in her, nor the voice of crying. And in Isaiah 25 it says, And in this mountain Yahuwah of hosts will make for all people a feast of choice pieces. And it goes on to say, And he will swallow up death forever, and Yahuwah will wipe away tears from all faces. The rebuke of his people he will take away from the earth, for Yahuwah has spoken. So if we're going to look at the time qualifier for the time when our tears are going to be wiped from our eyes, like John describes in Revelation, it's when we're going to be having a feast of choice pieces, a feast of wine and of fat things full of marrow. So that is meat, by the way. This is going to be the marriage supper of the Lamb. So this happens at the same time that our tears are wiped away. And if you remember in the New Testament, Yahusha says, I won't drink of this wine until I drink again with you in the kingdom, paraphrasing. But this is talking about the same thing. So this is going to be at the start of the millennial reign, not after. Moving on to Revelation 21:5-6, it says, Then he who sat on a throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, Write, for all these words are true and faithful. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give of the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. Now if we go to Zechariah chapter 14, it's describing the day of the Lord and what happens when Yah and Yahushua return. And then in verses 8-9, it says, And in that day it shall be that living waters shall flow from Jerusalem, half of them toward the eastern sea and half of them toward the western sea. Now this is a direct parallel to what we just read in Revelation 21. And in Revelation 22, which is still talking about New Jerusalem, it says, And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding from the throne of God and of the Lamb. And in the middle of the street, and on either side of the river, was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month. The leaves of the tree were for healing of the nations. So all these passages are all talking about the same thing. So in New Jerusalem, there's going to be a river of life that flows from the city that's given freely to those who thirst. And we also see this in Ezekiel 47:6-12. It says, He said to me, Son of man, where have you seen this? Then he brought me and returned me to the bank of the river. When I returned, there, along the bank of the river, were many trees on one side and the other. Then he said to me, This water flows towards the eastern region, goes down into the valley and enters the sea. When it reaches the sea, its waters are healed, and it shall be that every living thing that moves, wherever the rivers go, will live. So this is the same river of life that John is describing. Now if we go on to verse 12 in Ezekiel, it says, Along the bank of the river, on this side and that, will grow all kinds of trees used for food. Their leaves will not wither, and their fruit will not fail. They will bear fruit every month, because their waters flow from the sanctuary. Their fruit will be for food, and their leaves for medicine. Now again, this links back to Revelation 22, 1-2, which is talking about New Jerusalem. In the middle of its street and on either side of the river was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month. The leaves of the tree were for healing of the nations, talking about exactly the same thing. So if New Jerusalem were to descend after the millennial reign, when everyone has their immortal resurrected bodies and there is no more flesh, then who are the nations? Who would be using the leaves of the tree for healing and for medicine? The nations are those who survived Yah's wrath, and they will be given the opportunity to live outside the city during the millennial reign, and they will partake in its blessings, including being healed by the leaves of the tree of life. Now, I'm only just using a few verses from the Old Testament that John is referencing. They all saw the same thing. All of the prophets saw the same thing. And this is exactly why we can't just isolate what John saw at the end of the biblical 66-book canon that we've got at the moment, because New Jerusalem is described everywhere. So if we go down to Revelation 21, verse 9 now, 9-13, it says, Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls filled with the 7 last plagues came to me and talked to me, saying, Come, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending from heaven from God, having the glory of God. And then it describes New Jerusalem. So it says, Her light was like the most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. Also she had a great and high wall with 12 gates, and the 12 angels at the gates, and names written on them, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, and 3 gates on the south, 3 gates on the west. Ezekiel chapters 40-48, particularly 48, goes into so much more detail about what John sees in these verses. So please read the full chapter by yourself. Just to give a quick synopsis, verses 1-28, it primarily describes the borders and the division of the land for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And it gives the exact locations or the allocations and measurements for each of those portions. Then in verse 31, it says that the gates of the city shall be named after the 12 tribes of Israel. And then it goes on to describe that each side will have 3 gates. This is exactly what John describes in Revelation. Ezekiel saw New Jerusalem. He saw exactly what John was prophesying about. So this third temple that everyone talks about, it's New Jerusalem. Ezekiel sees and describes New Jerusalem, the temple, the sanctuary, and the habitation of Yah. It's the city, the heavenly city that Yah has prepared for us. And it's not called New Jerusalem, that's just a title. It's called Yahuwah Shema. Revelation 21:19-21, it says, The foundations of the wall of the city were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, and then it goes on to describe all of the crystals and all of the foundations. And then it says the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each individual gate was of 1 pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold like transparent glass. So this is obviously describing a real, literal city. Even though it's heavenly, it's only called heavenly because it's currently in the heavens. It's made of real materials that we see on the earth now. So if we take a look at Isaiah 54, Yah is speaking directly to the city of New Jerusalem. This is a direct parallel to John's prophecy in Revelation. In verse 11 to 12, it says, "O you afflicted one, tossed in tempest and not comforted, behold, I will lay your stones with colourful gems and lay your foundations with sapphires. I will make your pinnacles of rubies, your gates of crystal, and all your walls of precious stones." Tobit 13 also speaks about the exact same thing. He speaks of the place where we will be gathered into, and he describes it exactly the same. So I really encourage you to read Tobit chapter 13 in full and just pay close attention to how it speaks about the gathering as well. It's the same gathering that's spoken about throughout all of the scriptures, and it describes the gathering into this promised land, which is the city that's built with precious stones and streets of gold. In verse 15 to 18, it says, "My soul blesses the Lord, the great King, for Jerusalem will be built as his house for all ages. How happy I will be if a remnant of my descendants should survive to see your glory and acknowledge the King of heaven. The gates of Jerusalem will be built with sapphire and emerald, and all your walls precious stones. The tower of Jerusalem will be built with gold, and their battlements with pure gold. The streets of Jerusalem will be paved with ruby and the stones of Ophir. The gates of Jerusalem will sing hymns of joy, and all her houses will cry, Hallelujah. Blessed be the God of Israel, and the blessed will bless the holy name forever and ever." So again, this is just proving the point that I'm trying to make, that New Jerusalem wasn't only spoken about by John. So many prophets talk about it, but they just don't call it New Jerusalem. Even in verse 11 here in Tobit, it says, "A bright light will shine to all the remotest parts of the earth. Many nations will come to you from far away, the inhabitants of the ends of the earth, to your holy name, bearing gifts in their hands for the King of heaven. Generation after generation will give joyful praise to you. The name of the chosen city will endure forever." Now this matches word for word almost with the prophecy in Revelation 21, 23 to 26, and also Isaiah 60. So Revelation 21 says, "The city had no need of the sun nor of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God illuminated it, and the Lamb is its light. And the nations of those who are saved shall walk in its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory and honor to it. Its gates shall not be shut at all by day, there shall be no night there, and they shall bring the glory and the honor of the nations into it." Isaiah 60, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of Yahuwah is risen upon you. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and deep darkness the people, but Yahuwah will arise over you, and his glory will be seen upon you. The Gentiles shall come to your light, and the kings to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes all around and see. They all gather together, they come to you. Your sons shall come from afar, and your daughters shall be nursed at your side. Then you shall see and become radiant, and your heart shall swell with joy. Because of the abundance of the sea shall be turned to you, the wealth of the Gentiles shall come to you." Now this is talking to New Jerusalem. Verses 19 to 20 says, "The sun shall no longer be your light by day, nor for brightness shall the moon give light to you, but Yahuwah will be to you an everlasting light, and your God your glory. Your sun shall no longer go down, nor shall your moon withdraw itself. for the Lord will be your everlasting light, and the days of your mourning shall be ended. All talking about the same thing. So the Gentiles, who are the nations who survive the wrath, will be drawn to the light of New Jerusalem. New Jerusalem is going to be massive. It's going to be 1,500 square miles, width, length, height. It is going to be so big and so bright. All of the nations who are in the world at that time are going to see the brightness of New Jerusalem and travel to it. These are prophecies that I think are probably looked over when it's describing the millennial reign. How else is the Gentiles going to come to the brightness of the kingdom? What kingdom on earth is going to be so bright that people are going to see it throughout the whole world? It's only New Jerusalem. That means New Jerusalem comes down before the millennial reign, and that is where Yahusha is going to reign from. Verse 11 in Isaiah 60 says, "Therefore your gates shall be open continually, they shall not be shut day or night. Then men shall bring you the wealth of the Gentiles." Now in Revelation 21, which we know for sure is talking about New Jerusalem, it says the exact same thing. It says, "Its gates shall not be shut at all by day, there shall be no night there, and they shall bring the glory and the honor of the nations to it." This is undeniably talking about the same thing. Now Revelation 22, which is also describing New Jerusalem, says in verses 3 to 4, "And there shall be no more curse, but the throne of the God and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. They shall see his face, and his name shall be on their foreheads." So this shows that this is the time when we will receive his name on our foreheads. We see this confirmed in Revelation 3:12. It says, "He who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. And I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and I will write on him my new name." So once we overcome, then that is when we're going to be receiving his new name on our foreheads. That's not going to be after the millennial reign. That's going to be before, when New Jerusalem comes down. Revelation 22:14 says, "Blessed are those who do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter through the gates of the city." Now where is the tree of life? Revelation 2:7, "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give to eat from the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God." And where is the paradise of God? 2 Corinthians 12:1-4 says it's in the third heaven. And then this ties back to Revelation 22:2. "In the middle of its street and on either side of the river was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits." Then it says, "The leaves of the tree of life were for healing of the nations." And again, who are the nations? So these are the people who are going to be traveling to the city of New Jerusalem to worship Yah. They're going to be traveling to New Jerusalem to keep the feasts, and they're going to bring their offerings during the millennial reign. After the millennial reign, there's going to be no more nations. Everyone is going to be in their glorified bodies. There's going to be no one else to be traveling to the city. We're going to be living in the city. Now I'm just going to put on the screen just some verses. There's so many more, but I'm just going to put these verses which prove that the Gentiles are going to be traveling to the city of New Jerusalem, which can only be during the millennial reign. So we've got 2 Baruch 68, which says that Zion is rebuilt and that the Gentiles will glorify it. Isaiah 2 says the nations will be streaming to the mountain of the Lord. Exactly the same thing is said in Micah 4:1-2. It says people are going to be saying, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord." Ezekiel 46, the Gentiles are going to be coming to worship on the Sabbaths and the new moons. Zechariah 8, the nations are going to be seeking the Lord in Jerusalem. Isaiah 66:18, it says, I will gather the nations and tongues, and they will come and see my glory. So these are just some. Like I said, there are so many. The nations are not going to be traveling to any other place except the kingdom of God, the kingdom of Yah, which is New Jerusalem. Now remember, the kingdom of heaven is our inheritance. In 1 Peter 1:3-4, it says, Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who, according to his abundant mercy, has begotten us again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled that does not fade away, reserved in heaven for you. There will only be true peace on earth when Yah and Yahusha return with the kingdom. Both of their thrones will only be established in a place not made with man's hands. It's the place that Yah has already prepared for us. 2 Baruch 73, please pause and read this whole chapter for yourself, but it says, And it will happen that after he has brought down everything which is in the world and has sat down in eternal shalom on the throne of the kingdom, and then joy will be revealed and rest will appear. This rest is the millennial reign. It says, And then health will descend in dew, and illness will vanish, and fear and tribulation and lamentation will pass away from among men, and joy will encompass the earth. And nobody again will die untimely, nor will any adversity take place suddenly. So there's going to be no one dying early, which is what Isaiah says. There's going to be no more adversity, so no more war, and that's because people are going to be putting their weapons down, and everyone's going to be living peacefully during the millennial reign. Now, I could go through many more verses, but I'm just going to leave it here on a final point. So, during the millennial reign, the nations who survived Yah's wrath, like I said, they're going to be living around the city. They're going to be living in a perfect, righteous environment. The whole world will worship Yah, and Yahusha will reign as our high priest and our king. There's going to be no Satan there to tempt anyone. He's not going to be deceiving anyone because he's going to be locked up for the 1,000 years. There's going to be no demonic influence that are going to be leading anyone astray. The Torah is going to be taught. It's going to go from Zion. So everyone's going to be living in perfect peace throughout all of their lives, and the nations will know and will live in truth. They're still going to be in their mortal bodies, so they still are going to sin. They are going to make mistakes. So that I'm not saying that everyone's going to be sinless, but everyone will 100% be living in peace. Now, after the millennial reign, however, Satan will be released for a short time, and he will go out to deceive those nations that are living around the city. So Satan isn't going to be going to deceive us. He can't deceive us. We are literally living with Yah and Yahusha in the heavenly kingdom. However, he will be released to deceive the nations living around us.
Why struggle when you can have everything?
We are so much alike, you and I.
So, although they've experienced the blessing and peace their whole lives with having Yahusha as king, they still will be tested. And we can see this clearly in Revelation 20:7-9. It says, Now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison, and he will go out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. They went up and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. So it says the camp of the saints and the beloved city that Satan and the nations come against. So the city where we will be living, the city where the saints are camped, that's us, and we will be in New Jerusalem. Hebrews 12:22 says, But you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. Revelation 21:2, then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem. Zechariah 8:3 says, I will return to Zion and dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth, the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain. Ezekiel 48:35, all the way round shall be 18,000 cubits, and the name of the city from that day shall be called Yahuwah is there. All of these scriptures, all of these different prophets are all talking about the same city, this New Jerusalem. Now there's even more detail about the time when Satan is released to deceive the nations, and that's found in Ezekiel 38. So I encourage you to read that full chapter for yourself. But in verse 8, it's especially important because it describes exactly what Satan will do. It says that in the latter days, he will come against a people who have been brought back from the sword, gathered out of many nations, and are dwelling safely. So this tells us that the time when Satan is released and he goes against the city is the time that we all will be dwelling safely during the millennial reign in the beloved city. Now this is confirmed again in Jeremiah 32, where Yah says he will gather all of his people out of all of the countries where he has driven them and bring them back to this place and cause them to dwell safely. So this proves that we are gathered into the same beloved city that Satan comes up against after the millennial reign. It's New Jerusalem. So I hope this all makes sense. I know it's a lot of scriptures and a lot of linking all of these different prophecies together. I'm going to leave it here for now, and I truly hope that this study has been a blessing for you. And I'll be really interested to hear your thoughts as well. And my prayer is that this helps you to understand that we are waiting for our Messiah and our Creator to return with the kingdom come, where we will live during the millennial reign and for eternity after. Once Yah and Yahusha come and set up their kingdom on the earth, that kingdom is going to be established forever. There aren't two kingdoms. We're not going to be living in one kingdom during the millennial reign and then another kingdom come down after the millennial reign and we live there forever. There's one promise, one kingdom, one inheritance that's going to be coming down at one point in time, which is before the millennial reign. We will be taken into this kingdom when Yah's wrath comes down. We will be protected from Yah's wrath because we'll be gathered by all of the angels and taken into the barn. And once Yah's wrath has passed, that's when New Jerusalem will be descending down onto the earth. That's exactly what John saw. When he saw New Jerusalem coming down, we were in it. It wasn't just coming down on its own. We were already in New Jerusalem when it descends to the earth. Now that is an amazing blessing. That is an amazing promise to look forward to. We will be living and reigning from the same city that is prophesied all throughout the scriptures by so many different prophets. Now I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I pray the Most High blesses and keeps you all.